Hello students, in this episode we are going to learn about the general characters, the ecology, significance and the life cycle of the two important fungus. One of them is Penicillium and the other one is Alternaria. We begin our study with the genus Penicillium. Yes, I know you could very well recollect this name from the very popular antibiotic that is known to all of us called penicillin. Now, this is the antibiotic isolated from the fungus Penicillium, and Alexander Fleming, who is the renowned scientist, worked with this type of fungus. But before we go into the detail of this genus, let us first understand the taxonomic position of Penicillium. When we move on to the taxonomic position of Penicillium, we find it belongs to the kingdom Fungi, division Ascomycota, class Uroshiomycetes, order Uroshialis, family Trichocomaceae, genus Penicillium, and here I take the species as Vermiculatum. Moving on to the general characteristic features of the mycelium, we find that it is a saprophytic fungus like any other fungus available on the earth, and it is commonly known as blue or green mold. The genus includes about 136 species which is distributed throughout the world, and they are found in soil, in air, on decaying fruits, vegetables, meat, etc. The mycelium consists of colorless and branched hyphae. They can reproduce by asexual as well as sexual mode of reproduction. The mature fruiting body of the penicillium is known as Clistothecium. Many species are responsible for the spoilage of foodstuffs. However, the fungus is not poisonous. If we understand the ecology of the fungus Penicillium, we find that they are cosmopolitan in their distribution. Usually, Penicillium grows as a saprophyte on decaying fruits and vegetables. Some species have been reported to grow on the floor of the forest, as well as some are found on the surface of the cultivated land also. Penicillium italiculum and Penicillium digitatum are well-known plant pathogens which attack the citrus fruit and cause soft rot disease. Here you can see the picture of a citrus fruit, a lemon, which is infected with Penicillium, giving a bluish green color to the fruit. Some species cause fermentation in cheese and gives it a characteristic aroma and smell. Penicillium can be grown artificially in the laboratory on the surface of a piece of cheese or any other citrus fruit at room temperature with some amount of moisture present in it. Development of the bluish green velvety patch takes place on the surface after a few days, and that depicts that the Penicillium species has grown over the substrate. If we move on to the vegetative structure of the Penicillium, we find that it is the mycelial body, and this mycelium is profusely branched with septate hyphae composed of thin walled cells containing one or many nuclei. Each septum of the hyphae has got a central septal pore. So, here in this picture you can very well see the presence of the septum pore, or the known as the central septal pore, and through this pore the cytoplasmic continuity is maintained. Some mycelia grow deeper into the substrate to which they absorb food material, while others remain on the substrate and grow into a mycelial mat. Here you can see the picture of the mycelial mat formed by Mycelium species over the surface of the agar media. The reserve food material in the case of Penicillium is present in the form of oil globules. The enlarged portion of the hyphae shows the presence of the oil globules present along with the septal hyphae, and therefore the movement of the cytoplasm as well as the oil globules can take place from one cell to the other. Coming on to the reproduction of the genus Penicillium, we find that Penicillium reproduces vegetatively, asexually as well as sexually. We first begin our study with the vegetative reproduction of the Penicillium. Now, vegetative reproduction takes place by accidental breakage of the vegetative mycelium into two or more fragments, and these fragments now grow individually into the mother mycelium. So, here you can find the tangled mass of the hyphae which forms the mycelium, and a portion of the hyphae or the mycelium which breaks off behaves as a fragment, and this fragment on the substrate or on a new substrate develops into a mother mycelium. The asexual mode of reproduction taking place in the case of Penicillium is with the help of unicellular, uninucleate, non-motile spores which are known as conidia. Now, these conidia develop on some specialized structures known as conidiophores. The conidiophore develop as an erect branch from any cell of the vegetative mycelium. The conidiophore may be branched or it may be unbranched. We find the unbranched conidiophore in the case of Penicillium spinulosum and Penicillium thombi. However, it is branched in the case of Penicillium expansum. The branch of the conidiophore is known as ramus, or in plural we call it rami, which further become branched known as metulae. So, here we can see the sporangiophore which divides into rami, and this rami further divides into metulae. Now, on the number of flask shaped structures called sterigmata or sometimes known as phylites develop at the tip of each metulae. These sterigmata develop at the tip a number of conidia which are arranged in basipetal manner. That means the younger conidia are near the mother and the older one is away from it. If we study the development of the conidia which takes place in a basipetal manner, it takes place during the development when the tip of the sterigma swells up and its nucleus divides mitotically into two nuclei. So, here you find the swelling of the sterigmata taking place. The single nucleus which was present in the sterigma divides mitotically into two. One of the nucleus migrates into the swollen portion, and after the migration of this nucleus, a partition is formed. So, this partitioning results into the formation of the first conidia which is separated off from the mother mycelium. The tip of the sterigmata swells up again, and following the same procedure, the second conidium is formed, which pushes the first one towards the outer side, and in this way we find that a basipetal manner the chain of conidia is being formed from the sterigmata's tip. The conidia so formed are oval, elliptical or globose in structure, having smooth, rough, echinolate outer surface or various colorations with green, yellow, blue color. After maturation, the conidia gets detached from the mother and are dispersed by wind, and on getting suitable substrate, they start germinating by developing the germ tube. The nucleus undergoes repeated mitotic division and all the nuclei now enter the germ tube. The septa formation takes place with the elongation of the germ tube, and finally a new septate branched mycelium develops, resulting into the somatic structure or the vegetative structure of the Penicillium. Here you can see the picture of the different types of conidiophores found in different species of Penicillium, which may be branched, which may be unbranched. Coming on to the sexual reproduction of Penicillium, we find that most of the species of Penicillium are homothallic, except a few like Penicillium luteum, which is heterothallic. The account of the sexual reproduction is found in Talaromyces verbiculatus. Now, the history shows that for a long time it was not known that Penicillium undergoes sexual mode of reproduction. So, they studied the sexual mode of reproduction in a genus called Talaromyces. But later on in 1907 by Dangiard, it was found that Talaromyces and Penicillium are one and the only one thing. And therefore, now we say Talaromyces verbiculatus is very much similar to Penicillium verbiculatum. Now this species shows oogamous type of sexual reproduction. The female and the male sex organs formed in this species are Ascogonium and Anthridium respectively. The Ascogonium develops from any cell of the vegetative mycelium as an erect, uninucleated and unicellular body. The nucleus then undergoes repeated mitotic division and ultimately it produces about 32 or 64 nuclei. The Anthridium develops simultaneously with the Ascogonium from any other neighboring hyphae, and it is also an uninucleate and unicellular branch which coils around the Ascogonium. The apical cell of the anthridial branch now cuts off by septation and it forms a short, somewhat inflated unicellular uninucleated anthridium. After maturation of both Ascogonium and Anthridium, that is the male and the female sex organs, the tip of the Anthridium bends and touches the Ascogonial wall. The common wall between the Ascogonium and the Anthridium now dissolves and the two cytoplasm intermix. So here in this picture you can very well see how the young Ascogonium is developing after the mitotic division of the nuclei is taking place. So this is the female branch developing, and along with the female branch we have the development of a male initial, that is the male filament coming up from the neighboring hyphal cells, and after that the Anthridium is enclosing or covering the female reproductive organ, that is the Ascogonium. And the tip of this male hyphae ultimately develops into the Anthridium. The Anthridium comes in contact with the wall of the Ascogonium. The point of contact now dissolves, or the wall that is present between the two, it dissolves. The two cytoplasm, here you can see in this picture, the two cytoplasm, they intermix with each other. Now normally in sexual reproduction we find that the nucleus of the male will be migrated to the female, but here it does not happen. The nucleus of the Anthridium does not migrate to the oogonium. Later the pairing of the nuclei takes place in the Ascogonium, and the pairing is taking place within the nuclei of the Ascogonium only, and therefore this process is referred to as autogamy. The Ascogonium now divides by partitioning, and therefore we have binucleated cells, each of the cell having two nucleus, that is dikaryon. Some of the binucleated cells of the Ascogonium projects out by the formation of the multicellular ascogenous branched hyphae whose cells are also dikaryotic. This is a dikaryotic cell, not a diploid cell. We should always remember this. The apical cells of the dikaryotic mycelia now swells up and now functions as an ascus mother cell. Both the nuclei of ascus mother cell now undergo a process which is known as karyogamy. That means the fusion of the two nuclei that is present in the ascus mother cell takes place, and after karyogamy we have development of a new nucleus which is diploid or 2N in nature. The nucleus now undergoes a meiotic division and then it undergoes a mitotic division. That means after the first meiotic division we have production of 4 haploid nuclei, and after that it undergoes a mitotic division that leads to the formation of 8 haploid nuclei. Now these 8 nuclei accumulate certain amount of cytoplasm along with them and leads to the formation of 8 uninucleated haploid ascospores. The fruiting body of the penicillium is known as Clistothecium. So let us understand what is this Clistothecium made of. The Clistothecium is a name for the spherical ascocarp or the fruiting body. Now within the ascocarp, the asci are located. The asci means those organs where we find the 8 uninucleate haploid ascospores. So we can say that each SI has got 8 ascospores, and altogether numerous SI together make up the ascocarp, which is nothing but the cleistothecium. The ascospores are released after the dissolution of the ascus and cleistothecium walls. The ascospores germinate after they are set free on getting a suitable substratum, and after that they develop a germ tube, which ultimately develops into a mycelium like any other mother mycelium. So here in this picture you can very well see this is a complete picture of the cleistothecium. Inside this cleistothecium we have presence of many SI, and within each SI we have presence of 8 ascospores. So when the wall of the cleistothecium along with the wall of the SI dissolves, the ascospores, which are haploid and uninucleated, they are released, which ultimately will germinate, form the germ tube into the mycelial structure. So coming on to the life cycle of the penicillium, we find that penicillium is undergoing an asexual mode of reproduction where the vegetative mycelium develops into a conidiophore. Conidiophore is branched into rami, and this rami ultimately is branched into medullae. On the tip of the medullae, we have the presence of the flask-shaped structure called phyllites or sterigmata, and on the tip of the sterigmata, there is presence of conidia in a basipetal manner. These conidia are unicellular and they are uninucleated, which develops by formation of the germ tube, and ultimately we have the formation of the vegetative mycelium. However, if the penicillium is undergoing a sexual mode of reproduction, we find that the young ascogonium develops, and besides this ascogonium, which is the female reproductive part, we find a development of another male hyphae which is known as antheridial branch. This antheridial branch encircles or wraps around the oogonium or the ascogonium, and after the wrapping up of the female reproductive organ, the tip of the male branch is cut off by a septation and it now behaves like an antheridium. After it behaves like an antheridium, it dissolves, or the wall between the antheridium and the ascogonium dissolves, the two cytoplasm mix with each other, but there is no transfer of nucleus from the male to the female. Rather, this induces the formation of the dikaryotic stage of the penicillium when the two nuclei of the ascogonium pair together, and after the formation of the septate we find numerous cells which are dikaryotic in nature but not diploid in nature. The tip of this dikaryon now develops into an ascus mother cell, and this ascus mother cell has got two nuclei which are haploid in nature. The two nuclei of ascus mother cell undergo a process of karyogamy, so there is formation of a 2n nucleus which is diploid. This 2n nucleus inside the ascus mother cell undergoes first meiosis followed by mitosis, and therefore we have formation of 8 ascospores present between the asci, and each of such asci is enclosed into the fruiting body which is known as the ascocarp, or proper name for this is cleistothecium. After the dissolution of the wall of cleistothecium and asci, we have liberation of the ascospores which are haploid and uninucleated, which develops by means of a germ tube into the vegetative mycelium. If we move on to the significance of mycelium, we find that they cause considerable damage to the leather goods, fabrics, furniture. Under damp condition, the wood of the doors, windows and household furnitures get covered with the profuse growth of this fungus which spoils the wood. During damp and warm weather, this fungus appears on bread, cheese, butter, jam, jelly and causes the spoilage of foodstuff. However, this fungus is not at all poisonous. Some species such as Penicillium digitatum and Penicillium expansum, they attack the citrus fruit which are in storage, but most others are saprophytic. They cause rot and decay of lemon, orange and other citrus fruits, and in transit and during storage they cause loss of thousands of rupees each year. Many species of Penicillium are important industrially in the production of organic acids such as oxalic acid, fumaric acid, gluconic acid and citric acid. Some species such as Penicillium roqueforti and Penicillium camembert are of great value in the food industry, especially in the cheese manufacturing industry. They give a distinct color, soft texture and they impart a distinct flavor to the development of the cheese, and therefore cheese developed from such species are known as roqueforti cheese and camembert cheese. Penicillium notatum and Penicillium chrysogenum are a source of the wonder drug penicillin, which has been used as a lifesaver for many generations since it inactivates many pathogenic microorganisms. Griseofulvin is another antibiotic produced by Penicillium griseofulvin. It inhibits the growth of some other fungi and thus used to control the ringworm diseases of animals and some fungal diseases of the plants. After the study of Penicillium, now we move on to another fungus, and that is Alternaria. The taxonomic position of the Alternaria is as follows. It belongs to the kingdom Mycota, division is Eumycota, subdivision Deuteromycotina, class is Hyphomycetes, order Monilialis, family Dimachiaceae and genus Alternaria. The general characteristic of the Alternaria can be stated as follows. The form genus Alternaria occurs universally. Alternaria is a large genus that belongs to the phylum Ascomycota, which is also known as sac fungi. A majority of Alternaria species are saprophytic, that means they are largely growing on the dead decaying matter and decomposing the organic matter in the environment. These species are found in the environment with organic material and water which has got enough amount of moisture. Some of the species, however, are endophytic. That means they are living in various parts of the crop, including seeds and fruits. And some of the species are pathogenic, causing diseases in animals and plants. Today, over 100 species of this genus have been identified. In most of the cases, the size of the conidia as well as the shape is used to identify and determine the different species of Alternaria. Alternaria alternata is one of the most popular species of the genus Alternaria, and it can be found in soil as a saprophyte. In plants, it causes disease and is therefore a pathogen. It also causes disease in animals by producing various toxic compounds. The important plant pathogens of Alternaria are as follows. Alternaria solanae, which causes the early blight of potato and other members of the family Solanaceae. Alternaria brassica and Alternaria brassicicola. These species cause the leaf spot disease in mustard, cabbage and cauliflower. Alternaria tenuis causes the leaf blight of wheat seedling. Here you can see the picture of Alternaria solanae infecting the leaves of potato. Moving on to the vegetative structure of Alternaria, we find that the mycelium of Alternaria is short, septate, branched, light brown in color, but as it ages it becomes darker in color. The colonies are woolly, but they are more compact with the underside very dark colored. The cells are usually multinucleated. In parasitic species, the hyphae are at first intercellular, but when they penetrate the cells of the invading tissue, they become intracellular. So, this is an enlarged view of the hypha of the Alternaria, where we find the multinucleated cells are found and there is formation of septate. Going on to the reproduction and the life cycle of Alternaria, we find that they do not have any sexual mode of reproduction. They multiply asexually by the method of sporulation. The characteristic asexual spores produced are exogenous and these are known as conidia. The conidia produced are at the tips of the ordinary hyphae, so they do not possess any conidiophores. The hyphae where the conidia are produced are short and dark in color. The special hyphae called conidiophores are not at all recognizable in the genus Alternaria. Conidia which are formed are large, dark colored, several celled and they are beaked in appearance. The number of cells vary from 8 to 14 or even more. Once the conidia are formed, they reach a suitable substrate, or it can be a parts of a plant like leaf, fruit, seed, etc. The spores now begin to germinate in the presence of moisture and ideal temperature. They grow as elongated chains with continued favorable conditions. They start producing the spores from the tip of their hyphae for the cycle to continue. So, here you find the conidia that are produced by the Alternaria, and this is a picture of the chain of conidia formed by the species of Alternaria that can be very well seen under the microscope. Therefore, we conclude that Penicillium and Ascomycetes fungi are of major importance in the natural environment as well as in the food and drug production. Indoor Penicillium can be associated with carpet, wallpaper, organic substances and is also known to grow within the fiberglass duct insulations. On the other hand, Alternaria, another fungus, is one of the most common outdoor molds that thrives on the vegetation and wood. It is also one of the prime culprit when it comes to the allergic reactions or hypersensitivity in the human. Therefore, we should always take care of any food or any particle which is infected with the fungus should not be consumed or should not be coming in contact with the human body. Thank you.